This week, I'm going to talk about the Festool TS55 track saw. Stay tuned. Hey everybody, welcome back. Jason with Benson Woodworking. If you're new to my channel, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. I do weekly videos on tips and tricks as well as some product reviews. And if you're not following me on Instagram, go check me out there at Benson Woodworking and you'll get to see what I'm doing on a daily basis. But let's go ahead and get into the video. If you've been watching my videos for a while now, you'll know that I am a big fan of Festool products. And I know that people get kind of weird when you talk about Festool, but bottom line, in my experience, they're great tools. And one of those great tools is the Festool track saw. For the longest time, I dragged my feet on getting the track saw, mainly because of its price. And I really didn't own any Festool products at the time. As a matter of fact, I owned no Festool products at the time. So me, like most people, I was kind of scared of taking that plunge and spending the money and justifying the price. And what I will say is that the Festool track saw is one of those tools that, man, do I wish that I would have bought a lot sooner. So my effort today is to kind of show you some of the things that I had questions about, really how it operates and just how easy it is to use, and kind of talk about some of the benefits and the features for having a track saw, whether it's the Festool version, DeWalt's, Makita's, Triton, or any of the other companies that make track saws. It is an excellent tool and is an excellent addition to your shop, especially if you're working with sheet goods on a regular basis. As I stated earlier, the one that we're going to talk about today is the TS55, and they make two models. They have the TS55 and they have the TS75. I don't have any experience with the TS75, but from my understanding, really the big difference between the two is the TS75, you're going to get a little bit more power. And the TS55 is great for cutting materials about 2 inches or less, and then if you're getting into thicker, harder woods, the TS75 might be a better option. But in terms of the capabilities of the plunge cut track saws, they're pretty much identical. So some of the things that I'm going to tell you about today are really basically just the features of this, how the whole system operates if you're unfamiliar with it. And then I'm actually going to do a demo because I have a piece of 3/4 inch plywood right here that it's sitting on, and I've got a piece that I have to cut for another project. So I'm going to go ahead and do that on this video. The things that I'm hoping to demonstrate today are really the cut quality, and I'm going to make both cross cut and rip cuts, as well as just all the features. So let's go ahead and start getting into the features of the track saw. As with any Festool product, if you see this color, the bright green, the neon green, it does a function of some sort. So I'm going to go through and talk about what each one of these does. So it rides, obviously the operation, it rides on one of these tracks, right? And the way that you can adjust the tightness of the track, the goal is to get this to ride on the track without having any slop. And by slop, I mean, think of a miter gauge. When you put a miter gauge in a table saw, you can make some adjustments to some set screws, and it'll make it so it doesn't wobble side to side, therefore giving you inaccuracy. So with this, you have these 2 green knobs here. So when you place it on the track, you can adjust these green knobs by turning them until you get it to the point where you can't shake it side to side, there's no slop. Now, if I was to loosen them and move it, you'd hear it clicking back and forth. So you just turn those knobs tight enough to where it still slides freely like it does, and it doesn't have any play. The next thing you have is the measurement system, and in this case it's Imperial. Standard, they come metric, but you can get the tape that goes over the top of it. Because I bought this one here in the States, it actually came just with the Imperial system already on it. And the way that you adjust that is you have this indicator down here, and you simply push this in and you slide it up and down. And when you're trying to set your depth, you're using the top of this line right here, or this plastic piece, to set it on whatever you want. So in this case, I have it set on a 1/4 inch depth, meaning the blade is going to come out of the bottom 1/4 inch. So what we have here, this little black knob that's on top of this indicator here, is a micro adjust. Like on most tools, or like on many tools, you have the ability to micro adjust things. Well, that's all this is. And by turning this, it raises it. And so when you push this down, this little metal stop right here will stop on that. So if you need to make very, very fine adjustments to just barely be breaking the veneer on the wood, you can do it that way if you choose. To operate this, it's a dual trigger mechanism. So I'm gonna release the lock here, and that will give me the plunging action. If I do not depress that, it will not unlock. So I push up on this, it allows the blade to go down, and then is activated by the trigger here. Here we have a knob on the front, we have a knob on the back, and a detent. And what that is for is if I want to make beveled cuts. So I'm just going to loosen both of those. I can pull my detent out, and then I'm able to adjust this to whatever degrees that I want. And it will not change where it cuts on the line on the track. And once I get back to 0, I just retighten these back down and it's good to go. But that is how you'd make the adjustments for a bevel cut. You have your indicator right here that tells you the amount of degrees that you are making that beveled cut. Another feature that's really cool is the plunge feature. So if you notice right here, there's a little tick mark. And if you notice on the splinter guard up here in the front, there is a tick mark. Those tick marks are used to show the rear of the blade when it is depressed down and the front of the blade when it's depressed down. So if I need to cut a box out of the center of a piece of plywood, we'll say, I know that I can make marks on, put these lines on the corners of where that box is going to be cut, and I only run to the edge of that line with my indicator lines. And then all I would have to do is go in and cut out with a jigsaw. This right here is your splinter guard. There's another piece that comes with it, which is basically just a clear see-through window, and there's a couple different variations of the splinter guard. This one here just raises and lowers, so you basically would set your track saw on the track. You're going to push this down until it's riding on the wood, and you're going to tighten it down, and that will assist with keeping the wood pressed down to help relieve some of the tear out that will happen. Right here we have the hex key that is used for any of the adjustments in a very handy location right in the handle. So the time that I would use that hex key is if I needed to change a blade. And I'm gonna show you how quick and easy it is. I'm not actually gonna replace, or I'm not actually gonna take out the blade, but I'm gonna show you the process in which you would do it. But it's very, very simple. So the first thing you need to do is ensure that that is all the way down to the bottom, giving you the max depth. Then I'm gonna open up my fast fix, and I'm gonna push it down, and it automatically locks in place. Now here you see where you would use the hex key to loosen the blade. So, or loosen the nut to remove the blade. I simply loosen that nut, take it out, pop the blade out. You can push this up for when you install your new blade so it doesn't get in the way. And then you just put your nut back on, tighten that back down, and when you're done, you just close the fast fix and it automatically locks back. The question that I've been asked a lot about the track saw is, does it slide around a lot? And the answer is no. It does not slide around hardly at all. Now, if I bump it, yes, it will move a little bit. And it also depends on how long the actual rail is itself, because they make some very short ones. I don't have a lot of experience with those. I just have the, I believe they're 55-inch, and I have 2 of those. So I have the ability to cross-cut sheets of plywood. And at the same time, if I need to rip something, I can attach the 2 together and have more than enough track. But some of the cool features that are on it, it comes with this non-slip tape or foam on the bottom, which does a very, very good job of keeping it steady. The other thing that you can get, another option, is you can get these clamps. Now, these clamps are a little bit pricey. It's like $40 for 2 of them, and they don't come with the track. You have to buy them additionally. But they do work very well, but I honestly almost never use them. And the way that they work is they go in these little channels right here, much like the micro jig dovetail clamps, similar to that style. And you would just put it in the bottom, put on whatever workpiece, and simply turn the clamp, and it will hold it in place, and it will not move at all. So they are a very, very good feature. However, I found that they're really not even all that necessary. Now, if I was doing something really, really long and I had it on a thin piece of wood where part of my track was hanging off, then in that case, then yes. But when I'm just cutting plywood, I almost never use them, and the track just sitting on the plywood seems to work really well. So getting this thing lined up to where I want to make a cut, it's very, very simple. And the typical thing that I follow is I always make sure that the piece that I'm cutting and that I need is always on the left side. So I'm actually going to put the track on that side because I want it to cut on this line, leaving this side as the scrap. And all I do is I make one tick mark on one end, I make one tick mark on the other end at the distance that I want. All you have to do is get this track lined up so it's intersecting. You do that on both sides, and then you make the cut. I'm just gonna go ahead and get this lined up real quick based off the two lines that I have made. I'm good to go. Like the whole Festool line, they all operate on the same dust collection. For me, I use the boom arm assembly just because it has the hose coming in from the top, and I find it does not get snagged on things like it would if it was coming from the ground. And to do that, I'm simply going to put my hose in and turn it, and it's locked into place. Place my power cable in, turn that clockwise, it's locked into place, and now I'm ready to go. What I'm gonna do now is go ahead and make this cross cut on this piece of wood, and I'll bring you in close to show you the amount of tear out. Now, this piece of plywood that I'm using, I'm purposely using because the veneer on it is extremely, extremely thin. So you will see a little bit more tear out on this as opposed to if you have one that has a little bit thicker veneer. But I wanted to use this one just to really give you a really good idea of just how good of a job it does. You will have tear out on the cross cuts. On the rip cuts, I found it to where there's almost zero tear out at all. For the second half of the cut, I am now going to place the splinter guard down so I can show you the difference between it with and without the splinter guard on. Okay, so I'll bring you in close here so you can see. So this is where the track was riding on. And if you look down that line, there is absolutely zero tear out coming down this line. Now, if you look at the scrap side, you do have some tear out. That was without the splinter guard. And then as you start to come down here with the splinter guard, you see a lot less tear out here than you do, for instance, here. Now, obviously speed comes into play as well when you're using this, so the faster you push it. But again, the veneer on this plywood right here is extremely, extremely thin. So not bad results with as thin of plywood as it is. And this is, I believe, the standard blade that does come in it. I will say that I have had better results with different blades that I use. I just have not replaced the blade in this yet. So that gives you an idea of the quality on the cross cut. Now let's go ahead and do a rip cut. So now I'm marking 40.5 inches because that's how wide I need this piece to be. Make my 2 marks. Get my track lined up on the line, and now I'm ready to cut. Okay, so now I'll go ahead and give you a shot of the cut quality while conducting a rip cut. This here was the side that the track rode on, and this was the offcut. And I'll try to get in nice and close. And the quality is just really, really good and clean, especially on a rip cut. Looks like I've got one little spot right there. But the quality is just really, really, really good, even on this thin veneer on a rip cut. As you can see, the track saw, very, very easy to use, comes in very handy, and it's really become one of those tools that I just honestly don't think that I would not want in my shop. I almost never even use my table saw anymore to cut plywood. I just have much better results with the track saw. And if you're anything like me, you cannot stand lugging huge pieces of sheet goods over to your table saw to try to manipulate them and get them cut down. I can break everything down very, very quickly and very effectively with the track saw. Like I said earlier, there's multiple different companies. You have DeWalt, Triton, Makita, Festool. There might even be some other companies out there that make track saws. I've heard great things on a lot of different companies. Festool is the brand that I decided to go with, and I couldn't be happier. And if you want some more product reviews on other Festool products, I'll put some links here at the end of the video so you can go and check those out when you have some time. As always, everybody, I really appreciate you watching. Thank you for taking the time. If you like the video, hit like, and if you think somebody that you know might like it, go ahead and share that video. If you're not subscribed, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. I do weekly videos, tips and tricks, and product reviews, all in an effort to make you a better woodworker. And if you're not following me on Instagram, go check me out there at Bent's Woodworking. You'll get to see what I'm doing on a daily basis. And please feel free to send me a DM anytime you might have any questions or any comments. I'd be happy to respond and answer whatever questions that you might have. So that does it for this week. I look forward to seeing everybody next week. Thanks for watching.